Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased that when we organised the event, they saved the best till last. So that's something we can look forward to. No, in all seriousness, we've got perhaps a little bit of a different format today for our session. I've got a panel. We've got a panel here. We've got four of our industry leaders today who we're going to talk about on the subject of the continued evolution of financial services on the Isle of Man. That's an interesting theme, and I'm looking forward to that. There'll be some interesting themes coming out of that, but also obviously welcome questions at any time from the floor that will to help stimulate the conversation as well. But while I'm keen to hear from the panel, it would be remiss of me to not perhaps run through some of Finance Isle of Man's key opportunities, key activity in the first half of the year. So I will just spend 5 minutes or so doing that now before we move on to the panel session. I'm sure most people in the room will know the 6 core elements to the financial and professional services sector on the Isle of Man. Here on the screens, and I'm pleased to say that all of them are seeing growth in one way or another, and they continue to be the cornerstone of the economy, roughly half of our GDP, delivered by roughly a quarter of the private sector workforce. So at the moment we've got about 9,500 people employed within financial services, and that is growing. If you've been here all day, you've probably seen this diagram a few times already. This is the shape of the economic strategy moving forward, and financial services is there right in the middle because we remain the core moving forward in terms of the strategy, and we have so while we're going to maintain and grow financial services, that we also have a place to support the new areas of the economy in green at the top there. There's a financial services nexus to all of those. On the right-hand side there, we've got some stats about job growth in the last few years. As I said, we are growing. In fact, last year, 300 new roles within financial services. Again, that's something which is very welcome, great to see. And we're hoping to have certainly well in excess of 9,500 by the end of this year. I'm now going to take the opportunity to touch on a few of our work streams and our projects that we've been working on, and perhaps call out some highlights. The first one on there, employee benefits. One aspect of working within financial services on the Isle of Man is that a lot of our success stories are really kept below the radar, and historically we've not really shouted about it. So, we have on the Isle of Man a world-class, world-leading pension sector. And in certain types of international pensions, 2/3 of those that are written throughout the world are actually written here on the Isle of Man. And on the back of that, and working with their group, that group of stakeholders, we've created an employee benefits cluster. This is a group of businesses, 20 at last count, who've come together, working together to promote the Isle of Man for a multiplicity of services that a corporate would need when looking at employee benefits. So that's all the way from pensions to life insurance, group protection plans, and anything associated with that. And that has we've launched that this year. That's been a great success so far in terms of promoting it, launching it on the Isle of Man, creating an International Employee Benefits Association membership group on the Isle of Man, and we're looking for good things out of that this year. And I think the number and the scale of the scope of the businesses that are involved in that project really, we're perhaps a testament to the quality of the offer that we have in that space. Those of you who heard the minister's comments earlier on in the strategy session, he mentioned the InsurTech program and the innovation challenge. The InsurTech Accelerator, that first phase of that concluded in January this year. That was a project centred around fintech opportunities in our insurance sector. Insurance is the largest component of the Manx economy, and that was designed to bring new businesses, new solutions to the island to deal with problems or to provide new opportunities to our insurance sector. That was a success. We ran that program in conjunction with our stakeholder partners in the insurance sector. We have 2 businesses who are moving, or one moved, another moving to the Isle of Man on the back of that. There's multiple proof of concepts being worked on in our life sector. And at the moment we have, I think it's 2 contracts confirmed on that, but I think that is likely to see change moving forward. Very positive. And we're going to be running another InsurTech project probably early in the new year. Well, our panel might talk about that in a bit more detail shortly. The FinTech Innovation Challenge, that's also been mentioned earlier today by our digital colleagues and by the Minister. That was where we were working with our colleagues at the regulator and our colleagues in digital to support a wide-ranging challenge and in a variety of areas. That worked very well. We saw 14 contenders come to the Isle of Man and present their solutions. We'll be launching the second challenge there shortly. One of the core activities of Finance Isle of Man is promotion of the Isle of Man. We've got 3 campaigns, one that's active and 2 about to launch, covering, well, employee benefits I've already mentioned. We've got our life insurance industry has got an opportunity to, a relatively time-bound opportunity to market into the UK, a particular kind of insurance bond, and we're supporting that. And we're also supporting a 6-month jurisdictional awareness campaign, something we ran with successfully a couple of years ago, really trying to highlight in some of our key markets the fact that the Isle of Man is a world-class international financial services centre, reinforcing what we already know. What else we got on that side of the international developments? The Isle of Man is well used to dealing with international tax matters and other regulatory matters. We continue to support our colleagues in the Cabinet Office and our regulator colleagues on a range of matters, including AML-CFT, working with industry on preparation for Moneyval coming to visit us probably in a couple of years' time. And also something that we've been doing a fair bit recently is looking at the future of the tax landscape. And in particular the OECD's proposals around Pillar 2. So that's the minimum tax rate on the largest global corporates and how that impacts the Isle of Man, how we can work with businesses and make the best of that, which hopefully will be a net positive for the Isle of Man. On the right, the fund management industry, for those of us in the room who've known that for a while, that's been perhaps, again, under the radar for quite a while, but the Isle of Man is really good at that. We've got some really experienced companies working in fund management of different types and styles. We've got a variety of fund products. And we've actually had one of the most significant new funds established on the Isle of Man only in the last few weeks, which is one of the largest we've seen for a long time. And that's a nice bit of positivity in that industry. And I think there were signs of growth there. Finally, on this slide, I've referred to events. Working with industry partners, we have a comprehensive event programme around the UK and internationally. We've sponsored multiple webinars and 9 physical in-person events so far this year. We've got a further 6 planned for the rest of the year, including Israel, Dubai, the UK, here on the Isle of Man, and also in South Africa. South Africa is a very interesting market, very interesting for the Isle of Man for multiple reasons. But we were invited by an industry group to join them on 2 years ago to work on promotion within South Africa, and that's known as the Indaba. That's been very successful in terms of engagement both in South Africa, but also engagement with businesses with a nexus with South Africa here on the Isle of Man. Rolf Odendahl from Turnstone is here in the audience. He's one of the driving forces behind the Indaba, and that's a great example of industry and government working together, working in unison to promote the Isle of Man, and but long may that continue. This is my final slide. On here we've got, we often talk about the maturity of the sector and the size of the sector, and we sustain, protect, maintain, and grow what we have. New financial services licenses, are fairly rare, but we've had a new Class 8 license recently on a very significant money transaction services business. We have ongoing work at the moment with actually several businesses looking to the Isle of Man for potential solutions to issues they have, particularly with servicing the UK market. And we're in active discussions with a range. We've got ranging from wealth management businesses to life insurance companies who are not currently present on the Isle of Man, looking to potentially move here, which is great. The two stats about jobs I mentioned earlier. We're seeing job growth across across our sector. The 64 is new jobs, so new roles created and placed on the island, which is great to see. That was principally in the banking sector. But on the right, the number of vacancies. That's another key metric of ours. I think probably for as long as most of us can remember, actually filling job vacancies on the Isle of Man has been difficult, particularly when we're looking for experienced staff. We work closely with businesses, with trade bodies, associations, with Locate Isle of Man, UCM and others to work on supporting that. In fact, we're going to be launching a marketing campaign next month, particularly around a subset in financial services, around financial services administrators and also compliance professionals, to hopefully bring more of those to the Isle of Man. We had a goal of reducing by 50%, or working to reduce by 50% the number of vacancies in our area within 3 years, and I'm pleased to say that we can already see over half of that in terms of the reduction in job vacancies. So that's another positive. I've probably already taken longer than I wanted to. There's various members of my team here in the room today. We'll be very happy to take any particular questions that any of you might have at any time here today, or if you contact us at Finance Isle of Man. But I'm really keen to move on to hear from our esteemed panel, who are going to discuss our strong heritage and, perhaps more importantly, our really bright future within financial services. So I'd like to ask Richard if he'd take over now and introduce the panel. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Michael. As mentioned, this afternoon's session is going to focus on the evolution of financial services, in particular the role played by new technology and innovation. In a moment, I'll invite the members of the panel to introduce themselves to you. I'll then ask a few questions to get the ball rolling, and then we'll throw things open to the audience. Either there's a roving mic in the room, or we'll take questions via Slido. So we have an excellent panel with us today. So please do take the opportunity to put them through their paces. Got a lot of experience and expertise in a number of areas. So as I say, please take the opportunity to put some questions to them. So without further ado, if I could ask the panel to introduce themselves, starting with John.
John Spellman. I'm chair of Annexio on there, but I'm also chair of Conister. I've had the dubious privilege of working in every financial services sector on the Isle of Man.
Matthew Beresford, so Island Director for Lloyds Bank International, also Vice President of the Bank Association.
I'm Aalish Harris. I'm Head of Commercial at Zurich Integrated Benefits International.
Good afternoon. I'm Greg Easton, Managing Director of Ravenscroft, Isle of Man, Pan-Island Group. And I think I've worked in 5 of the 6 sectors.
So as you've mentioned there quite well, John, you've been at the sharp end of the finance industry for a number of years now. So if I could come to you first and ask you how the island's track record of innovation has helped us to get where we are today.
Certainly. They say if you've been around long enough, then you've seen everything. I remember in 1989, a one-way ticket to Heathrow on Manx Airlines was £336. So I was laughing when the guy was arguing about the cost of travel, because it's been with us forever. I'm going to come back to what Michael said about maturity of sector right at the end, if you don't mind. But the reason why the Isle of Man financial service sector has grown in the last 50 years is for really, really specific reasons. And they are basically enterprise or entrepreneurs and also resilience. I'll just do a quick 5 steps on it. So first was banking, and the opportunity there was very, very low taxes on banks and gross interest. It was as simple as that. But it was an individual that made that choice to establish those product sets on the Isle of Man. We had a few buffers along the way, not least SIB, anyone who remembers it in the 1980s. In the 1980s, it was the insurance sector, and two things happened. It was insurance premium taxes, and the second was the opportunity on offshore life bonds, which didn't exist in the UK. And I was happy and privileged to work with the two guys that established the first two companies here, and I'm still friends with them today. But that industry has grown into a multi-billion-pound industry, the biggest single employer on the Isle of Man. There's other ones that actually came forward. Funds sector and funds administration. It was good in the 80s, but blossomed in the 90s. Again, it was individual opportunities identified by people, not least things like the exempt fund and the administration. And what Michael said before, we do it really, really well, so I'm glad that's coming back. There's other examples with the fiduciary sector. Basically, it was assisting tax planning. I'll use that euphemism. But it's now evolved into both fiduciary services, but really interesting more recently is outsource professional services by corporates. Again, entrepreneurs started those first few businesses and it's grown into a massive multi-billion-pound sector as far as the Isle of Man. When you move on to 2000, we mentioned pensions, it's cure-ups. And again, the opportunity on cure-ups was identified and developed here on the Isle of Man. Fund sector as well has grown. The key bit being, and the reason why we've been successful, is an entrepreneur or entrepreneurs take the opportunity to develop. And the second is that you've got the resilience and you work with government and the regulator to push it forward. I would observe at this moment in time, we're at that peak of that growth, Michael. So the next opportunities is to develop the entrepreneurial ideas that are coming forward, and we'll probably come back to this later, I guess, Richard, and develop them. Because the life sector, apart from people like Zurich, are in a consolidation stage. The fiduciary services are in a consolidation stage. They're not necessarily a bad thing, because you can consolidate and move on from there. But it's really important now we select those next innovations and move the sector on. So, long answer to your question.
Thank you, though, John.
Entrepreneurial and the resilience to actually push on and make ideas work.
Thank you. And Greg, if I could come to you and just expanding on John's comments there, with an eye on the future, what do you think are the big changes that we can see in the future?
Yeah, and picking up on John's point, I was thinking about resilience just before we came on stage and how I think we do have a lot of institutional memory on the island, and that travels a long way. And I think the next stage of that is the regrowth piece. It's how do we take those sectors forward. I think great example, we've just got the new Trust and Trustees Act through with royal assent. I think I travel to places like Switzerland, you have professionals there that might choose a Jersey or a Guernsey trust law. Actually, why not look at the Isle of Man trust law because of everything else you get with the island? I think the other element for me, which really stands out, was top left on one of Michael's slides, the green economy. We have a natural advantage of being a UNESCO biosphere. I know for a fact Jersey and Guernsey don't have that luxury, and they're applying to try and get to that stage. But that really does hold weight when you're travelling and when you're talking with maybe businesses that are not familiar with the island. There's at the global stage, there's been some really interesting developments over the last 9-12 months. So we had the new global biodiversity framework that came in Montreal December last year, and this week we've had the final ratification of the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, and I think there's an opportunity within that for us as an island with all of those professional sectors to really be leaders in the green space. And yes, you do see some backtracking from a political perspective occasionally across the water, but I actually think the direction of travel we're seeing overall is really, really positive, and the innovation that we're seeing is really encouraging to see. Zurich, prime example of that. People want to go and work for Zurich because they can see what they're doing and the direction that they're heading in. And I think, I suppose, my one last point there would be nationally determined contributions are meant to be increasingly ambitious, and I think that's something that actually we can help lead the way with that as an island and demonstrate where you can get to with a green economy.
Thank you. And just taking that another step forward, Matt, what specific strategies are in play to maintain the success of the finance sector?
Yeah, and I think Michael did a great job at kind of summarising a lot of them. I think we start with compliance as the focus. We've seen Moneyval in other jurisdictions. We know the importance of Moneyval, and it's round the corner. I can see Bettina sat at the first table here as well. So we did some analysis on Moneyval and the implications. If that didn't go well, you're looking at 10% GDP loss potentially in there, which is significant. So we need to start with that, and we know AML, CFT, etc. is really important. I think then moving on from there, we've got investment. So you look at the banks, you look at the property side of it. I think you kind of Santander, you call out ourselves. Barclays and HSBC have all invested in property, either new property or refurbished property on the high street in Douglas over the last, say, 18 months or so. Take it on from there, back office. So there's a real customer focus and a customer strategy in back office. I'm sure that there'll be some of you that want to talk about account opening times, ease of opening accounts. That's all going to improve with the back office focus on the customer journey going forward as well. So there's a number of things happening, but I think start with compliance and then look at innovation.
Yeah, and there's obviously a balance to be struck, as there is in most things, between sort of growing the innovation side and maintaining a robust regulatory environment. So Aalish, what do you see as the challenges and opportunities for the island?
Yeah, I'll maybe start with a positive, then lead into some of the maybe challenges that come with that. And people will remember COVID. We were forced into a place where everybody was working from home. And Zurich is an international business. We've got customers all over the world. And these people were being furloughed, they were being laid off. People needed access to their retirement savings because they had nothing to sustain their life anymore. And, writing to us and us coming back and saying, okay, thank you. Now go out and find a lawyer, an accountant, an actuary, a director to certify your AML documents and make sure that you've got a printer at home to print off all of these lengthy withdrawal documents and make sure you sign it with a wet signature because we need to verify that. It was just physically impossible to do that. So the regulator here, really receptive to the fact that things had to change, and the introduction of eKYC and digital signatures helped move us as an industry onto a digital journey. And on that digital journey, you can start to look at where you've got dead time in the business and where you can start to automate things and make processes start to finish a lot quicker and a lot smoother and better from a customer outcome perspective. But the flip side to that is the industry that we've got and the customers that we're serving are multi-generational. And, Gen Zs, they like everything on their phone. They like things to be immediate and readily available. But no, at the other end of that scale where you've got the boomers, some people might not have mobile phones, for example. They might not feel comfortable with doing everything through a digital source because they can't trust it and they can't verify it. They like to see people face to face. And one of the requirements that we have, in the industry is to ensure good customer outcomes. And where you've got these vulnerable customers and you're trying to force them down a fully digital journey, and they can't do that, and you've got no manual workarounds, you're then not able to meet the customer demand. You're not able to serve customers properly. So, as much as being digital and building things and moving forwards, does help that end-to-end journey, you've got to remember that, what are you offering? Are you serving the customer effectively?
Yeah, thank you. And we've got one in on Slido here. Every high street bank on the island still invests in fossil fuels. How can we get a bank trading here for personal and business banking that invests ethically? Matt, you take that one first.
I'll take that first, yeah, if that's okay, and then pass over. I won't talk for all banks, because all banks have different strategies, clearly. I think there are some banks there, and so Lloyds, I'll talk for us, we don't invest in new fossil. So we are working with our existing partners to decarbonise and get better, and I think banks play a big part in that financing. So 90% of our emissions come from our financed emissions. There are examples, and I won't name the companies, but where we've looked at refinancing on the island, and we've put in some pretty challenging elements in those refinance deals to incentivise companies to kind of decarbonise and to get to where they need to get to as well. So I know other banks will take a different view, but that's our view.
Okay, John, would you like to come in then?
Yeah, chairman of Conister. We've got green schemes, the finance of cars and battery-based cars, but what Richie Sunak said yesterday, unfortunately, he's quite correct. What's going to happen to all the car batteries in the future? How is those funding and those second-hand vehicle values going to be addressed? There's also the manufacture of the existing petrol and diesel-based.
So at Conister, we are very focused on green financing, both from bikes to cars to yellow plant. But we also need to remain cognizant that there's consumer demand and there is a natural infrastructure that has to be in place before we make this change. If we try and force consumers too fast down a certain route, then it's bad for them and it's also bad financially for us as well.
If I could just add on the investment side, I think a lot of that's around transparency, and it's aligning it with client sustainability preferences, which again I think has evolved in lots of jurisdictions, and I think we'll see that coming in here as well. I think the other challenge is when you're looking at carbon data, there's ways that carbon data can be reported. You can report it on a control or an equity basis, and you often find that the big multinationals will find a way to sort of siphon it off somewhere. So I think you really need to dig into and have a look at it properly. And I think where we are with the transition now, so the shared socio-economic pathways that the UN sort of looks at and sets out, I think it's a challenge now to try and get 1.5 degrees. I don't see us on that path anymore. But I think the path we've been on has been the middle of the road path. I think where we're drifting to is SSP3, which is the sort of rocky road path, where you see jurisdictions that become more fragmented. They're thinking about their own security, whether it's energy or food security. I think there's a real call for investors and a challenge for investors that actually the way you're investing now is going to help shape what happens in 5, 10, 15 years' time. And I think it's so easy to put climate into the important but non-urgent category. And as I said, those kind of nationally determined contributions, they need to continue to be ambitious. I think picking up on Aalish's point, if you have to cover all the generations, I think there is a transfer of wealth happening. There was a really interesting case in Montana a month or so ago called Herald versus State, where a lot of plaintiffs who were children brought a case against the state, saying that what was happening was sort of detrimental to their future, and the court found in favour of Held. And I think that's now going to have some really interesting ramifications when you look at things like fiduciary duty and how trustees or directors have to take responsibility for the decisions they're making now, not just from a financial perspective, but from a future generations economic perspective and a risk perspective. Such a complicated area, and I think we're just getting to one of those really interesting bits of the transition now.
Do you want to come back in there, John?
I do, because this is about the Isle of Man in the first instance. So Rothschilds, many, many years ago, had an investment strategy that was be on the cutting edge, not the bleeding edge. So the choices that we make in the Isle of Man must follow the international standard. They have to. But I would caution strongly against going beyond that at this stage. You might be able to go and charge your car in Peel and the two down by the creek, but you look in Douglas and the number of cars, the charging, the supercharger are going much, much faster. So let's make sure the infrastructure goes the same speed as any sort of changes that we do in either regulation or legislation or whatever, particularly with regard to the financial services sector.
I think the other positive to throw in there is what we're doing on biodiversity, which is the other side of the coin, which often doesn't get as much attention. And I think the amount of carbon sequestration we can get from improving our peatland that is then also good for habitat, all those sorts of things. It's the nature-based solutions, and we're seeing it as an investment manager. There are more investment opportunities in that space now, so there's other ways of addressing it. Yes, we need efficiency, but it's the positive solutions that are out there that really need the funding and the support.
Okay, Matt.
And I think there's also a link with the biosphere. So I missed the session before this with Visit Isle of Man, but in terms of the biosphere, it's one of the best kept secrets on the island, and there's a real link with ESG to the biosphere, to tourism, etc., and try and join those dots up for the island. We are small enough that we can make big change quite quickly.
Do we have any questions from the floor?
Just considering global challenges of war and international relations, how's that impacted the Isle of Man, and what are the kind of opportunities and threats from that going forward?
Who wants to take? John, did you want to start that one? Thanks.
You may or may not, Steve. Me and a couple of people in the room have been at the forefront of those conversations when I was working with government, and it was a very, like Pia, you remember, the threats to the Isle of Man have been going on since the 90s, and it started, I think, with the Edwards report was the real sort of big one at that time. And the really important thing to do, the Isle of Man does really, really well, and Bettina through the regulation and your relations with Moneyval, you do the right thing as far as the international relationships go, but also you don't roll over either. Like we've had many, many, many really difficult conversations with the US, with the UK, with the EU. I mean, really threatening conversations. But we found the right solution, and that's why the industry's still here, is that we've balanced both our needs and their needs and explained really clearly what we do and what we don't do and put some of those misconceptions correct. And it's the younger generation that's taking over now. And my suggestion would be, don't roll over on stuff. We do, and we try to do the right thing, but make sure is that you are doing the right thing and you move at the right pace.
Right, thank you. And Michael set out before some of the initiatives that Finance Isle of Man have got in play to kind of raise awareness of the island and to drive that new business. Now, obviously, every jurisdiction out there is looking for a slice of the pie in terms of fintech innovation. So one of the questions on Slido is, to all the panellists, what's the unique selling point for the Isle of Man? What have we got that others don't? Yeah.
Look, I think we're becoming more competitive, and I think we do. There's a lot of similarities between all of the international financial centres. I think there is the spirit of innovation, but honestly, I think we already talked about it. It's UNESCO Biosphere. Nowhere else has got that. We should be pushing that message as hard as we can out there in the international community. I think that's our one unique piece, and it gets talked a lot. Michael was talking about it. Dina was talking about it before. When you actually get people to the island, give them a choice between Monaco, Gibraltar, Jersey, Guernsey, some of the Caribbean islands. Once people come and see it, I think they know which island they want to come and stay on and spend more time on. And whenever I go away, and if I'm could be in Sao Paulo, something like that, seeing clients, I know I'm always so pleased when I get back here. And I think once clients come here and get a small taste of the island, then those links start to grow. We've got our STEP conference coming up in October, and we tried to reinvent that this year. So it kind of turned into death by PowerPoint, tea and biscuits, bit of CPD. This year we've got 28 international speakers coming across and making it far more vibrant in terms of the way it's being delivered, and a further reach and engaging with other jurisdictions as well. And I think coming out of COVID, it's reforming those links in different ways for different places and take that, what we have, and showcase it and make sure we are at that, as John says, that we don't roll over, that we present ourselves well, and yeah, we've got the infrastructure to do it.
Yeah. Aalish, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to build and say, the Isle of Man's slowly becoming that centre of excellence as well. And there's problems that the Isle of Man Financial Services has that's not unique just to the Isle of Man. It's not just an island that does domestic business, but it does international business as well. And the opportunities to come in and solve some of the issues that businesses have is great. There's drawing points to the Isle of Man, like you say, with those UNESCO Biosphere links. And actually some of the work that FinTech, InsurTech, ALO, AIBA, all of the different initiatives that get run at the moment are all about, providing opportunity for the financial services sector to develop and flourish and grow. And, we're in a position where unemployment is incredibly low. How can roles on the Isle of Man be changed to better suit people and their needs and their development going forwards? The roles that we have today won't exist in 10, 15 years' time. And, we're probably at a tipping point where someone can come in and change the whole nature of what the industry looks like as well.
John, can I pass over to you?
Bell, say the USPs that we have. We've got to stop being so modest. We're a tiny island of 85,000 people, and we've got some world-class businesses here. And it's not like I used to be a director of Zurich, so I'm obviously a fan of Zurich. Fantastic base business. We've got people like now, used to be called PokerStars, obviously moved on from there, that their head office was here. We've got some absolutely tremendous companies here. And the thing which I love about it, it's down to individual people, really talented people that sit within these businesses, and they are the drivers. The opportunity that you're describing on Bio as a new hook for the future, I think is absolutely fantastic, but it's grabbing that opportunity straight away. It's not pausing, it's doing with the regulator on a balanced perspective and also with government. It's we invent USPs as we move forward. So like I said about the 5 steps that we've been through in financial services, nothing stays still. It's about taking the opportunity and being bold enough to go for it. And the Manx people, to my mind, absolutely embody that ability to actually grab that opportunity and move forward. So USPs change is identifying opportunities when they present themselves and doing something about it.
Yeah, Matt, can I bring you in there, please?
You can, yeah. And I just add one other bit, and I think it's education. So I was privileged to be on the panel for the judging of Junior Achiever Awards this year. And I don't know if you've seen on LinkedIn and social media, but we had a number of fantastic teams of young people do really well in that challenge. And actually 2 of them went on to win European level awards in the fintech space. You know, so okay, they're not fintechs and doing payment systems, etc. But you know, if that's going out and profiling the Isle of Man and the education and young people, that is a serious USP that we should invest in and do more of.
Yeah, and sorry, can I just building on from that point? We had over 1,000 students in yesterday for the Youth Summit, and just touching on something you mentioned before there about what the finance sector will offer them in terms of a career for those contemplating taking their first steps. So what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, people ask me about my career in the industry, and you know, my parents were from Zurich. I kind of fell into the industry per se because I hadn't decided what I wanted to do. I'm glad I did. I've been with Zurich now for over 7 years and had such a broad and diverse career that I don't want to leave. Zurich is an incredible place to work. The industry is great and it offers so many opportunities. And you know, touching on the developments that's coming into the industry, you know, we're looking at the use of AI internally, and you know, not outsourcing documents per se, but an internal device that helps people process and make decisions a lot faster. So taking out that dead time that I mentioned, allowing people to get better at business acumen and commercial acumen and have that overlay on top of, you know, menial decisions to help serve the customer better. And, you know, it's quite interesting how that can develop. And today you've got people that need to be contact centres, you need people to, you know, withdrawal processes. What I'm seeing is that actually these roles don't exist anymore, but they become a bit more exciting. You need more customer experience people. You need more data architects. You need more IT architects in the business, more skilled professions that I think young people are interested in. And I think what becomes important in the industry is actually that companies start to mirror and embody the values that younger people are looking for. We were talking before, I had to step into an interview for one of my colleagues, and there was a young girl that came in and she said, okay, Zurich talks a lot of talk, you have these core values, talk to me about optimism. How do you embody optimism in the company? And I thought, oh my goodness, I've never been asked this before in my life. Okay, let's talk about optimism. And, you know, people aren't just looking for the talk, they're looking for you to walk the talk as well. So as companies and businesses, it becomes really important that you start to really embody those values. You know, Gen Z are so interested in well-being and sustainability. You know, it becomes so important that companies take that seriously and do something about that, because people want to have impactful careers, not just for development, but also from a personal perspective.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think also it's that Ray Dalio point of kind of, you need the education, you get the skills, then you get the innovation. I think what we have here with a lot of businesses is if you're ambitious, or if a leader sees some ambition, you can get on that track to have that career, to be successful. And then I think the other piece you've touched on there that's really interesting is sustainable prosperity. How can you be successful in this world but still be to meet all those criteria that the next generations have coming through?
Right, just conscious of the time now, do we have one last question from the floor? If not, I'd just like to thank you very much. So, yeah, gentleman there.
Just one quick question. I'm passionate about the Isle of Man, and I'm always very conscious that we get bigger and bigger financial services industry companies on the Isle of Man, and those companies are not owned by Manx people, with the result that a lot of capital and income that could have stayed on the Isle of Man actually leaves the Isle of Man. And with it, leave some of our best employees that is pulled to headquarters all over the world. I'd be interested, John, being entrepreneurial and all of those things, how do we solve that problem?
That's a really fascinating one, that is, because the bank industry wasn't local people. The insurance industry wasn't local people apart from Isle of Man Assurance. The fund sector was on the administration side, the pension side was. it's a natural course of things as successful as you get swallowed up by larger based entities. But an old boss of mine had a really good strategy, and I've said it to people in government, is he used to say, you buy 50 train platform tickets at a time, some leave the station, some don't. So it's the ability to grow those seeds and grow those seeds of new businesses and bring those entrepreneurs through, because that is the growth bed of the future. It's a natural course of things that people grow up and mature and fade away. And that's what we're seeing in quite a bit, the maturity bit, I should say, in financial services sector. But the emphasis on maintaining those jobs is really important. But the growth of the entrepreneurs and the new opportunities, and there is loads. I saw so many through InsurTech that these people can come through. So focus on those, and that income that you're describing and that GNP will start growing again like it always has done. It grows through the cycle.
I think we're at an interesting point where we're almost second, third gen financial services. My family moved over because my dad got a job here. I would have gone off and done something different, but ended up coming into financial services and have loved it. And I think we're now seeing the next generation coming through too. I think it's how do we attract extra talent to come back to the island or do more with the island? And I think we get there by establishing stronger links with other jurisdictions. And the UK has been the dominant force for the right reasons. It now only represents 3% of global equity markets. So actually the world really is our oyster. You can, whether you were a Brexiteer or a Remainer, it doesn't really matter. We are where we are, and we're an island that we can present ourselves how we want to in the world, really. I think there's great opportunity for us.
Yeah, just conscious of time, but if anybody wants to just make a further contribution.
I think the guys have summed it up really well. I think the only bit I'd add is around collaboration across sectors as well. I think in terms of challenging openness, there's more we can do between the different sectors.
Yeah. Right, thank you very much. The panellists will be around afterwards if we didn't get to any questions, so you'll be able to just have a chat with them here. And now I'd just like to invite Sue up onto the stage to wrap up for us.
So firstly, huge thanks to the panellists for their insightful and very passionate contribution. Loved it. And importantly, for gigging you up and being very generous with your time. I know we ask a lot of you, and you have participated in a number of our different working parties and working groups. So again, thank you again for your contribution. As Michael said at the beginning of the session, financial and professional services contributes about 48% of GDP, so it's vital that the sector is maintained, but also that we continue to evolve and grow and change. Now, a few key things I was hearing coming through consistently from the panellists. A big emphasis on being entrepreneurial, attracting entrepreneurial, being resilient, shouting out, being bold, celebrate success, and importantly, collaborate between industry, regulators, and other jurisdictions that we can learn from. I was interested to also hear from Aalish when she mentioned about how adversity sometimes brings change through COVID, and the importance, again, of customer service. We are a customer service-driven industry and sector. We sometimes forget, and we get very involved with AI, IT, innovation, with electronic stuff and IT. I'm crap on that, so apologies for my phraseology. So it's great to see that we still understand the importance of that good customer outcome. And that's something we really have to remember, because of some of the USPs that you were mentioning there, one of the things that I always find in the island when I've worked in different jurisdictions is the openness and the ability to be able to reach out to other businesses, to the regulator, to government, and to work with them. And it's the people that make that happen. We're always hungrier to see growth or change or challenge, because sometimes we're seen as a bit of a more poor relation when you talk about the Channel Islands or other jurisdictions. So again, coming back to what John was saying, be bold. Do shout out about our successes, but also balance that with making sure that we put our money where our mouth is as well. Don't just talk about it, let's get it over the line and let's get it done. Again, Greg, I've been to a number of your presentations, love it, very impassioned about ESG. That was coming across from everybody, and it's something obviously within the island we all have to take personal responsibility, and our businesses also have to take personal responsibility for making a contribution to that as well. So that was a great message to come through. So I want to know when your next presentation is as well. Okay, so just to finish off, conscious of time, again, thank you, that was great. A lot of questions, a lot of insightful thoughts and things that we need to think about. And it just gives us a bit of a kick sometimes to remember that we do have to put our actions into place, not just talk about them. So I'll leave you on, we do, as an island, using John's phrase, or was it Rathbones you mentioned, we don't want to be in the cutting edge. We want to be in the cutting edge. We don't want to be in the bleeding edge. I love that. I'm going to use that one again. So thank you. Again, thank you. And thank you for everyone for participating as well.